We used to train church leaders in hotels, but we realized that that was not a conducive atmosphere. So we established a campus in current Nairobi where we train church leaders. Now the facility became a good facility, and so many people use the facility when we are not using it for their own trainings, retreats, and programs. But then it also becomes one of the ways I speak to you today. Korat represents self-sustaining. We don't have any funding from anywhere, not because we do not want. We take it that as an organization, we should seek to be 100% self-funded. Become partnership to train church leaders. So for example, we have a group that facilitates Catholics training by giving us scholarship annually. We have a group that facilitates Lutherans by here, Korat is 50 years. We are celebrating 50 years since we were established in Kenya. Now, because of that, the board of Korat Africa has set aside 2 million Kenyan shillings to offer about 50 scholarships to needy churches from across Africa. So think about it. In case you have a minister you would like to forward to Korat, whether it is full or partial, we will see what we can do, because this year is a very special year. I recognize you, Presiding Bishop Dana. Nice to see you, sir. And so thank you so much for that by way of introduction. The things that I've just said. Now, I want to observe that the subject you have asked me to speak on is a very interesting and critical subject. The book of Acts, to me, when I joined the National Council of Churches of Kenya, I was coming from the students' movement. In your different countries, evangelical students' movement takes on different names. So you've heard of Gaffers or Knifers or Forkers or Taffers. All those names are student evangelical movements. I came to the wider church body, and I was kind of shocked by the dynamics that exist within the church environment. I had to learn a lot to know how to relate with the different congregations within the fellowship, but I also kept asking myself some very serious questions. In Kenya, for example, we are 82% Christian. This is not in my notes, I'm just seeking to create a rapport so that you know where I'm coming from. And so the idea here was that why are we 82.6% Christian, and yet we struggle a lot in our context in terms of church impact and influence. I have since learned that really, if you were to come to where the rubber meets the road, none of us can eliminate corruption except Jesus. Only Jesus will actually finally eliminate corruption. But that does not mean that we are called to do nothing about it. And so we are in this context of warfare where light shines through the darkness and the darkness has not comprehended it. And it's as if it keeps moving back and forward as we wrestle, as we advocate, as we preach. And my desire was to find out what really should the church do. I came in with a master's degree in biblical studies, admitted to do a PhD in New Testament. I love 1st and 2nd Corinthians very much. But within 4 or 5 years of NCCK work, I changed my PhD focus. I decided to study the impact of church organizations on the socio-economic and political affairs of a nation. So I picked the National Council of Churches of Kenya and did a historical study from 1918 to 1982. And my approach was to say, what were the areas of emphasis that the churches jointly approached the country? There were issues of civic education, there were issues of labor, there were issues of property management, there were issues of education. And I kept looking at each of these areas, and I studied the minutes of the churches in congregation, the way you are in congregation today. just looked at the minutes, looked at the letters, looked at the correspondence, looked at the statements, looked at the materials, as I went through, I began to realize that the National Council of Churches of Kenya had had such a significant impact on this country over the years that they don't even have time to tell. And like NCCK, you are churches, I can assure you today, you are very poor at talking about the success that you have had. You almost have no time to do it. It's somebody else who will come and look at what you have done over the years and then begin to record that you realize is very important. For example, between 1918 and 1924, the colonialists wanted Kenya to go the direction of South Africa and Zimbabwe. They wanted to convert Kenya into a white man's country. The ecumenical movement, then known as the Kenya Missionary Council, resisted that movement. And they argued all the way to Britain and ensured that the Lord Devonshire passed a statement, a policy paper, which declared that in all matters concerning Kenya, the interests of Africans shall be paramount. Now, my thesis was able to prove that it was actually the churches which achieved that. And I don't want to go into that. I'm just giving you an example. So these kind of things do suggest that the church is a very strong movement and that the church has a fantastic platform and that the church ought to develop the skills, the theology, and the strategies to benefit from this impact. There are times, for example, when government rubbished the church. The church did not have to argue. They just took a different path. I will use another example. In this country, technical education was introduced by the church. In 1966, there was heavy unemployment. The church leaders came together and they set up vocational institutions. In a short while, vocational institutions became popular because people were getting jobs. What happened? The government moved to take over those vocational institutions. So I realized that if the church resists what you're doing, you don't have to fight them, just do the right thing. Because the church will be popular, not because it is seeking popularity, but because it wants to do the right thing. And when you do the right thing, the public will realize that you're doing the right thing. Immediately, they will come behind the church. And politicians can smell popularity from 100 kilometers away. So whenever you are looking like you are popular, they will associate with you. That's why they come to your Sunday services. They're not so much interested in you or your church. They're looking for votes. Once they have the votes, you won't see them there. When next votes are coming, you will see them approaching. So the church has a place in society. And I want, as we discuss governance, for us to have these kind of perspectives in mind. What is governance? It is the way an organization, yes, thanks. It is the way an organization sets its direction by making decisions about people, priorities, programs, and services. It is the process of decision making and then the process by which the decisions are implemented. It is the mechanism through which accountability is realized, ensuring compliance with legal framework. What is governance? It refers to the role that boards or executive teams play in leadership and oversight. The framework of rules and practices by which a board of directors ensures accountability, fairness, and transparency in a company's relationship with its stakeholders, whether they are financiers, customers, management, employees, government, or even the community at large. Any successful organization will need an oversight body to oversee its affairs. If I was to make reference to the book of Acts, I would remind you, because you know clearly, that in Acts chapter 1, Jesus departs, and the disciples become aware that it is real. He said he would rise and he would be taken away in such dramatic fashion. What happens then is that the angels appear and they tell them, this Jesus whom you have seen going will return in the like manner. I think the disciples were really serious because they had denied Jesus before. They had denied him before, and they knew the pain of that. So now they were not going to deny him. Jesus is coming back very soon. They didn't even leave Jerusalem. They stayed here. On the day the Holy Ghost came, Peter was not preaching. He was only explaining that we are not drunk. But the power of the ministry of God's word could only be compared to the Methodist ministry, the John and Charles Wesley types, where you preach and people are cut to the heart. 3,000 people are added to Christ. The congregation changes from 120 to 3,120, just like that. If your church was meeting in a hall like this one, which is a big hall, already you are out of space because these are 3,000 people. That is what you call a crisis. This crisis was evident in various ways. There was fundraising, there was purchase and cooking of food, there was serving of food, and all these other ways. Now the disciples are trying to manage an unwieldy organization. It is growing exponentially. The next time Peter and John and James are going to the temple, they pray for a man who is lame and he gets healed, and another 2,000 people are added. And the book of Acts says, and the Lord added to their number daily such as were being saved. So it is growing. Now Peter is there trying to make sure people have eaten. He's there trying to make sure funds have been collected. Before long, they realized that is the way to kill the ministry. There needs to be a separation between governance and management. Am I making sense? We have been sent to preach the gospel. Let us oversee what is working. Governors are overseers. Governors are policy makers. Governors are the ones who put managements in place and call management to account. We meet in the morning, or I came, and thank you, Mr. President. I was in briefly on the session. The president is here leading our governance structure. What we were deciding were policy statements. This is how our organization will function year to year. Once that has been done, that will be handed over to Dr. Mujinga and team. Now you go and implement. They are the ones who will make sure it is printed. They are the ones who will make sure you have copies. They are the ones, when they next come, they will be asking, we passed this, did it change? So there is an oversight and there is a management. And so in the book of Acts, you begin to see that ministry demanded a separation between governance and management. Paul, writing to Titus, his son, says, I left you in Crete that you may put in order the things that were lacking. Appoint overseers and leaders in the churches. Order is a requirement, is a call of the Spirit of God. And so it is a system of rules, practices, and processes by which organizations are directed, controlled, and held to account. Governance is necessary to assure the common good and preservation of the society or organization. It essentially involves balancing the interests of the company's many stakeholders, such as shareholders, management, customers, suppliers, financiers, government, and the community. What are some of the aims of governance? One, let me use this language, then I will explain. One of the aims of good governance is increased profitability and efficiency of corporations and organizations. I say this because governance language is not original in the Bible. is not original even in common society. It is a private sector terminology. Because private sector companies are focused on profit, they try as much as they can to create highest levels of efficiency of use of resources for products at the most economical price in order to sell at a maximum profit. Now, that kind of thinking means you do not give opportunity for mediocrity or carelessness. You are always demanding the best. In private sector, it's not difficult to sack a person. Why? You are not meeting the targets, they say. In the church, before somebody gets sacked, the church will have suffered. You will really have suffered. Or pray for him, or send somebody to talk to him, or do this. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do all that. I'm just saying sometimes you actually need to read what is called the Riot Act. Send somebody out of office, he will go and reflect and become a better person. If you cover up for him, there will be a challenge. But my point here is that it is a private sector terminology. So then, governments are inefficient, governments are corrupt, are wasteful, but here is a private sector that is highly efficient, highly productive, making profits. So the government taxes them until they can tax them no more. Then they now ask the question, why are we not able to operate? They say, can you borrow some principles from the private sector? So the word governance, corporate governance, now becomes common terminology. Now, the other type of government that we face is the church. Church can also have its own share of inefficiencies, its own shares of mediocrity, its own shares of lack of capacity to achieve intended objectives. So churches also began to ask, is there a better way? What are the demands of the gospel on us? How does holiness translate in the management of church affairs? How does church righteousness reflect in audit accounts? Churches are a latitude. It's a whole latitude. There are churches that the word audit is anathema. It should not be heard. Handing over and taking over is a painful process. We have nothing to hand over. You've been chosen the next general secretary, take over. What are the documents? Is there no documents? There are some churches like that. But there are other churches that are so highly organized, you can think that they are actually a private company. Recently, a church in this country declared a 2.4 billion shillings income in their reception of funds and in their activities, with a surplus of 115 million. For those of you who are not from Kenya, 115 million surplus is almost $1 million. Surplus. We have done everything, salaries paid, all these things have been done. Now, I thought that the government would come up and say, yes, these are the kind of institutions we need to be following. They were really talked about on the media. These guys are too rich. These guys, are they really taxed? So I said the church can never win. The church must always keep doing the right thing. So terminology comes from the corporate sector, and it is seeking to make us more efficient, better leaders, better accountable, and to make our people restore their trust. I'll talk a bit about that as we go along. So the aims are increased profitability and efficiency of corporations and organizations, enhanced ability to create wealth for shareholders and stakeholders. What's the benefit of church members in your church? What's the profit they get? Increased employment opportunities. If a church functions well, the opportunities for engagement in church ministry multiply. Every school you start requires teachers, bazaars, drivers, all this. Every hospital you open requires nurses and doctors and all this. So churches when they are functioning well, easily create employment. And sometimes you create employment not so much because you are determined to oppress people, but because people are called to ministry. People who come to church may be willing to take even half the salary because they have a sense of calling from Christ to serve. And so church facilities thrive, not because they have too much money, but because people within them are called. In the same way you yourselves are called. Then there is transparency and accountability and probity of corporation and organization. We call these kind of things, when they are well done, good governance. And it requires the board to balance its role, an oversight body, with its role as a force supporting the organization. As the ministry grows, when you become the presiding bishop, do you become an implementer or do you become a governor? Because if you are an implementer, people will call you to account. If you are a governor, you will be chairing those who are calling others to account. You have to make a decision. If you are to ask me, I would say remain at the level of governance. Because you can give instructions, you can give policies, and you can cause people to implement things which are right. And there are so many things which weigh on your mind as a presiding bishop that you have no time to check whether people ate dinner or not. Let somebody else do it. This is what Peter realized very early. The gospel will suffer. No time for prayer, no time for reading the word, no time for teaching it. And yet you are the one Christ has told, go ye into all the world. So he said, no. We step back. But when we step back, what should we do? Should we allow things to go haywire? No. Choose 7 men of integrity, high reputation, Holy Ghost filled, people with similar qualification like ourselves. You know, I keep saying the Lord allowed us to see this when Stephen attempted to preach. You know, he didn't finish his sermon. It was so effective that he was stoned, you know. So it tells you that he was not serving table because he could not preach. It was an assignment. Serving tables is as important as being on a pulpit to preach. Because if you are preaching and people are discriminating, Kenyans are discriminating Ghanaians, the ministry is nullified as you talk. But if it is done well, then people say that is the light we are talking about. There is a group called Christians. What they say is what they do. So governance, when we talk about governance, we aim for increased capacity of organizations to attract investment. Now, in corporate government, in corporate language, we talk about increased investment. In church language, we talk about the Lord added to their number daily, such as who are being saved. What is increased investment in church? It is people responding to the gospel. Why are they responding to the gospel? They have seen a high standard of life. They have seen a fair way of dealing. They have seen a transparent way of operating. They have seen a way of freedom, a way of truth. So anytime that is in the mind within a church, we lose out. We lose out on trust. And I can tell you today that most churches are poorly funded because people don't trust the leadership. The things that we do that raise questions of whether or not we can be trusted with the resources or not. And so, enhanced legitimacy, responsibility and responsiveness of the organization. We aim for transparency, accountability, and probity of corporation or organization. Good governance, therefore, requires that you have a board. A board is a group of people called together, set up by the systems of the church to be able to oversee its affairs. Who is going to receive reports? We now have a Sunday school, we have a clinic, we have a church. We have a counseling ministry. All these are important ministries. Who is coordinating their work? Where are they reporting? So with proper structures, you find, let's choose a head of counseling. He's appointed by the board. Let's choose a head of hospital. He's appointed by the board. Let's choose a head of school. Let's choose a senior pastor at the church. It doesn't mean the presiding bishop has lost his authority at the seat of power. There's too much work to be done. Too much. As you travel to the congregations, who is taking care of the affairs of the seat where you sit? You find you need a highly gifted, called individual who can manage that. Then when you come back, he can give reports. This is how we are progressing. You sit at governance, you choose management. There are times you even choose respective managements for the various entities. It just depends on how you set up your structures. But this is purposes of the board. They set policies. Policies are guidelines that help us avoid subjectivity. We are promoting people. On what rationale? Do I just look at you and feel like you ought to be promoted? After you are promoted, how much money should I pay you? Or is there a written guideline that can guide me? At what point should I say somebody is due for appointment for something? If there is no policy guideline, I may call somebody whom I know, join the organization, and accelerate their progress and create industrial action. Other people are going slow. You are wondering, why are people not working as they should? But there's some unfairness which has entered the fray. But when there are written guidelines of how things should be done, which in governance language are called policies, what happens is that as you meet in the board, you want somebody promoted, somebody will ask, has this person completed 6 years of service to the Methodist Church? Tick or no tick? Is this person trained in the area he's going to serve? Tick or no tick? What salary has he quoted? Can we afford them or can we not? Then you find that you have created a level playing ground. How will finances be managed? Should I wake up in the morning and decide, today we are buying a plot? Or is there some guideline of how to buy a plot, when to buy a plot, who to decide when the plot should be bought? Because if that's not the case, I'll be just going around my ministry, somebody will come to me and say, there's a plot here which I have really been thinking the church should buy. Here it is. Money is needed tomorrow. Take it or leave it. Then I make an instant decision and say, buy the plot. Then you realize later it's a total mess you have put the church in. It requires to come back to the board. Send management to go and do a search. Let them evaluate its viability, its usefulness. What will the church do for it? Let there be a board paper that tells you exactly why we are buying this piece of land. Where is the money coming from? Now, when that is tabled before the board is a very amazing entity. If the board is chosen properly, it has got people from different professions, different levels of engagement, different experiences. Some are accountants, some are lawyers, some are doctors, some are teachers, some are businessmen. Each of them bringing a perspective. Sometimes you have passed something until you have reached what you call a conclusion. Then somebody puts up their hand. Almost decision making. They do something called throwing a spanner in the works. They raise a question, and you just all realize you had not thought about it. And it saves the organization. So boards are very, very important, equipped and given an opportunity to serve. Make strategic operational decisions. They authorize appointment of administrative personnel. They examine candidates who present themselves for top full-time service management jobs. If you employ a mediocre person prepare to spend sleepless nights. Because the person will not do the job you have called them. At Korat Africa, we have a hospitality side. I'm not anywhere near hospitality in terms of knowledge. I don't even have a certificate in hospitality. So when I came to the office, I said, I need a hospitality manager here who is a top hotel person. A Christian, yes, but a top hotel person. So we got somebody who has worked in places like Intercontinental and others. I can tell you for sure, God has granted us grace so that I never have to worry. We sit in management meetings, we take decisions, we receive reports, we give instructions, and you find the place is functional and returning benefits to Korat Africa. I'm just saying, you and I are Africans. You know, when you got your position, how many of your village mates thought now finally their job had arrived? How many people have visited you with their children to say, take this one? This pressure is on us. But I can tell you for sure, use policy. Ask the question, is he called by God? Is he trained for the job he's applying? If he has all those qualifications, tell the parent, we are going to advertise in June, let him apply. Don't get involved. There's something called conflict of interest. Let him come through. If he can survive that process, you can employ him with integrity. If he can't survive that process, tell the parent, we gave an opportunity, he applied, we gave him a chance, he didn't succeed, God will open another door for him. Policies. Go for the best. You know, I don't know, I shouldn't put it that way. I should say many of us do not realize the kind of grace and authority God has given us to call upon his servants. I can tell you, God can send you to the managing director of Kenya Airways to tell him, I am calling you to go and be the manager of that particular unit for the church. The salary is going to be 1/10 of what you are earning. And you will tell him, as a faithful prophet, and go your way. So don't feel forced to come. Just pray about it. You may find somebody calling you next week to say, I have thought about it, I have talked with my family, I think it's a good thing. He will bring top quality service to that entity. Who tells us that we should be getting people who have not made it anywhere to run church organizations? And it's because we are fearing salary. You are fearing the salary will be too high, you can't afford. Let me tell you, these things work like chicken and egg. Get a poor person, mediocre performance, money goes down, no salary. Get a top quality person, excellent service, people get attracted to the service, you raise more resources, you afford the salary. We have to think in faith. We have to believe that God must have the best. Go for the best. And this is what we are talking about. When the board is functioning well, it identifies good strategic servants who can then be effective. Now, in terms of governance, a good governance effort, like a board, is consensus-oriented. It allows everybody to speak. We don't bang tables and say, I have said, you must follow. No, no, no. You allow it to go around, let people share what they are saying, and then let's benefit from the knowledge. It has to be accountable. Every one of us is transparent, and we are accountable to our members. It has to be transparent. There is nothing hidden. It has to be responsive. Decisions need to be made in time. It has to be equitable and inclusive. We must benefit from all types of professions and all gender. It needs to bring the best out of what God has given us. It must be effective and efficient. It must be the kind of board that is actually thinking about the good of the church and also of the organization. It follows the rule of law. It is not just haywire. It is actually doing things the right way, and it is participatory. Now, factors that affect governance. One is culture. What is your normal way of doing things? And for many of us, we actually just need to change the culture of how we operate. Sometimes the culture is a negative culture. It brings us down. Sometimes it is leadership. We need to differentiate between leadership and management. A good manager needs to have significant qualities of leadership. Because in leadership, we talk about vision building, we talk about courage building, we talk about faith communication, we talk about taking decisions that are taking us to the next level. And then there's a question of structure. Which structures are sustaining this? As I evaluate the organization, what is falling through the cracks? In public relations, we say, if something becomes a crisis, more than 30% of the time, you need a policy. Don't wait for another crisis. Prepare for it in advance. So which structure are you putting in place? And then the question of alignment. What is the relationship between the entity you have set up and the main church? Why did the church set up a school? It was to achieve a particular ministry of the church. Can that school have different objectives and be non-aligned to the objectives of the church? It ought not to happen. Who will ensure that? The board. And then systems. What kind of systems are we putting in place? We are increasingly in the era of systems, not just manual systems or human systems, but electronic systems that are facilitating our work. Sometimes we fear expense, but fearing expense is not always the answer. I keep saying, fear expense from two directions. What it will cost is the simplest. Ask what it will cost for you not to implement. Because we normally ask, what will it cost to implement? We never ask, what will it cost not to implement? And you may find not to implement is much more costly than implementing. So look at it from both dimensions. A good leader is a leader who will dare go to directions that are beneficial to everybody, but that sometimes people are not seeing. A leader must be daring. Yeah? Take it to the board, do papers, convince the board. If they don't agree the first time, come back another time, get professionals to come and speak. Help them see the value, not just of implementation, of not implementing. And you will see different results. And then the question of direction. The board gives direction. We affect governance by the direction we give, and then we do oversight. We passed the following decisions. This matter has been on matters arising for the last 3 meetings. Why can we be told why it is not being implemented? Let there be proper accounts. We are not just sitting in board meetings to entertain people. We are actually passing decisions that need to be implemented. And when they are not implemented, there will be good reports of why they were not implemented. What were the struggles? What were the risks? What were the challenges? And what kind of support do we need from the board? A good chief executive, I normally tell my management, look, the board is over us. The board has given us opportunity to run Corat Africa. We cannot go to the board 2-3 times asking for the same thing. Because the board will say, okay, we have given you the go-ahead. If you come the 4th time asking for the same thing, the board will say, this guy has no ideas. Let him step down. Let's get another competent managing director. The board is an interesting body. They entrust the making of money to management. They are the ones who spend. So it is the board. The board spends what management makes. And if management cannot make money or achieve objectives, let me not reduce it to making money. Let me talk of achieving objectives. If management cannot achieve objectives, the board has a responsibility to put in place another management. Because you need to be moving. You need to be going directions. You can't just be timing in the same place over the years. Actually, it's a bit like riding a bicycle. For as long as you're not moving, you fall. You know, the bicycle. Remember the day you fell when you are learning? You discovered that the best way of remaining stable is actually riding. Keep moving. Please tell me if I've exceeded my time. I think I lost it. So good boards build partnership with management. So the board is an oversight body. The board asks honest and serious questions, but that does not mean the board must be at loggerheads with management. A good board seeks to develop a cordial relationship with management so that then it can actually account for the decisions that are being made. Increasingly, good governance is demanding that boards be evaluated. Every member of the board be evaluated. You know, there are some people who come to the board, they say nothing. They agree with everything. You begin to ask, should they be on the board? We have not called here people who can, anything you say, yes, in fact, Mr. President, that, oh, in fact, President, you change your mind, he says, oh, President, now you have got it. Where does this person stand? That's not a good board member. A good board member should bring insight. They should reflect. They should critique. They should ask for clarifications. They should help the organization avoid risk. So, we need to take note of that build partnership with management through trust, openness, respect, and honest communication. And then shape and uphold the mission. What is the mission of the organization? In corporate governance, in other words, among companies, the culture of strategic planning was put in place. Where are we hoping to be 30 years from now? 25, 25. Now, that has caught up with the church. And when the church was asked, where are you planning to be in the next 10 years? Surprisingly, many of us had no idea. And we can't function that way. If you have a whole Bible to teach the church, and you have no idea when you will teach them from Matthew, from Luke, you have no idea. If you have no idea, don't be surprised if they don't know. You never taught them. In fact, a school teacher is better trained than we are sometimes. A school teacher is given a textbook, is given 4 years with a child, and he can promise you, in 4 years' time, I will put this child to an exam and they will pass. Can the average pastor in church ask themselves that question? Can they submit their member to an exam? These things don't happen by chance. You wake up in the morning, hold your Bible, close your eyes and say, today I'm preaching from where it falls. I'm sure you were taught not to do that in theological school. There needs to be some order. And also, a board needs to be thinking strategically. We put a strategic plan in place that is participatory, that consults everybody, and then we call management and we say, look, this is where we are going. Are you able to implement it or not? If you are not able to implement it, tell us. But if you are able to implement, we have given you the backing, we will give you the resources. Every quarter you report to us in committees, let us know what's going on, and we are going to be moving together. A board gives direction. Board is responsible for the constitution, board is responsible for the strategic plan, board is responsible for the policy guidelines, the board is responsible for all those documents. And once you have put them in the hands of management, you hold management to account, whether they are obeying or not. And then articulate a compelling vision. What is the vision of the organization? How many board members know what the vision of the organization is and where the organization is going? How many board members know what the mission is, what the core business of the organization is? How many board members know the values of this organization? We need to be able to familiarize ourselves. Good boards apply rigorous conflict of interest procedures. In other words, there are some boards which are destroyed because people came to the board not to serve the church, but to get tenders, contracts. They've set up a company and they are making sure that tender is being pushed towards that company. When that exists in a board, it won't take long before the board collapses. It won't take long before the members realize what's going on, and it won't take long before the church begins to go down. Actually, of the land in this country is if agroforestry, there would be too much money in the church. The church would not need any politicians to come here with money. So who is helping us to think the board can make those decisions? I mean, we are privileged to be here at the Methodist Church of Kenya. This institution has been an institution of high repute for many years. Many years. And when the church decided they wanted to do something more, they owned this property. It had a residential building, which probably could only give 100,000 shillings or so per month. They invited an organization to come, and I think it was Corat Africa, to come and do an evaluation of its properties. And then to make proposals of what can be done. Said, look, the value of this plot alone, if somebody was to buy this plot, he's not buying the house, he's buying the land. Because the house is useless. So put a building here that is worth the plot. And if you do feasibility study, you can get money from the church, you can get money from loan, and you can put up the facility, and it will repay itself in this number of years. So you need integrity, you need high quality, and with time, the Methodist Church became an example to many churches. I'm just saying that there is opportunity, but somebody's eyes must be opened. Inner eyes. There needs to be a vision. There needs to be an understanding of a concept. And the board can ask those questions. Yeah. You don't employ a manager just to occupy an office. You employ a manager with ideas. Somebody that can disturb you, can come and table something that will cause you to think. If you find board members sleeping in a meeting, there are no ideas to challenge. There are no ideas to challenge their presence. A management needs to be pushing to the next level. Just telling them what needs to be done. Good boards commit to continuous learning. Exceptional boards embrace the qualities of a continuous learning organization, evaluating their own performance and assessing the value that they add to the organization. They energize themselves through planned turnover, thoughtful recruitment, and inclusiveness. I keep telling myself, don't put yourself in any position where you are insecure if you are removed. It's really bad to be insecure. You are afraid you might be removed. Don't put yourself in that position. Serve in such a way that if the Lord tells you tomorrow, your time is up, you just salute and say, as I'm a faithful servant, you sent me here, and I am going. Now that takes a paradigm shift. And you'll be surprised how much you'll achieve when the interest is not security. The interest is not my security. The interest is progress in the organization. It's a whole paradigm shift. And boards need to be thinking that way. So I am on a board. It's a 5-year term. And I'm really pleading that at least I finish 5 years. Wrong thinking. Disturb the board. Disturb the board in the right direction. If they want to remove you, let them remove you. But disturb the board with new ideas and accountability. Good governance requires, we need to then ask, in what areas of governance is your organization doing well? All these things I have talked about, if you were to put yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5, where are you on the various things I am talking? In what areas of governance does your organization need to improve? I mean, as leader, have you realized how much burden is on your shoulders because you have not invited people to work with you? You want to be doing everything. There's a case in which somebody had not been on leave for 5 years. Not been on leave. Why do people not want to go on leave? Most likely, there are certain affairs that they don't want to be known. And a board should ask the MD, when are you going on leave? Should ask the chief accountant, when are you going on leave? Yeah. Let's see your leave schedule. And you know the type of leave where you go and you hand over to somebody else to do the work. These are practices which we need to establish. They will be useful to the organization. They probably will help you discover 1 or 2 things that you would not have known if the person was in place. It's not all good reports that are actual reports. Sometimes they are painted rosy so that you may have an impression that they are good. I keep telling my management, let's not go to the board to worry the board unnecessarily. But I also tell my board, when things are bad, I will tell you personally. I will tell you here and here we are struggling. 2 or 3 times I have had to tell them it's not good. Things are difficult. They will ask you the next question, so what should you do to help? Then you table some proposals. If you can't table a proposal, don't tell them things are bad. Because then what do you want them to do? You want them to look for another managing director. So let's see a good balance. Let's be in office. Let's hold it seriously. Let's hold it with firmness. But let's also say we are working accountably and transparency in such a way that if today I was required to move on, I will move on. And there is a thorny issue which I cannot speak to today because it is not part of what I want to speak to. The whole question of church retirement processes. I can tell you for sure, as Korat where we sit, we see so many people who are afraid of retirement because there is no retirement plan. And I want to ask church leaders to think seriously about retirement plans. It will not happen unless you think. Somebody must think, somebody must plan, somebody must execute. And so, activities would include, I've already talked about consensus-oriented accountability and transparency. So let me say that good governance, there must be an effective body responsible for governance, which we have defined as the board. It must be all-inclusive in approach to governance, get different competencies. It must be as an institution, must be governed and managed according to the mandate of its founders. How true is it to the original vision of Christ of the church? Institutional governance framework should provide an enabling environment within which its human resource can contribute and bring to bear their full creative powers towards finding innovative solutions to shared problems. Management will function effectively if you create an atmosphere. For today, these are the issues I wish to raise, and I wanted to therefore say that corporate governance principles have become an essential part of managing modern organizations. Corporate governance is the cornerstone of any successful business. It pushes the limits. It refuses to misuse God's grace. It takes action. It demands high quality. It demands, it wants the church to be an example to government. Yeah? When government is being accused of corruption, let the people be saying, why can't you be like the Methodist church? Yeah? Because then, in that way, you are a witness, just by the way you live. Okay? Good corporate governance has been attributed to the great success of many organizations. I think one of the most amazing benefits of good governance is trust from members. Trust. There's a church called ABC in this country. I can mention their name because it is a good report. This church is an amazing church. It started in this country in 1947. It was one of what we would call the indigenous churches of this country. Their finance system is such that they have only they only have 3 accounts in the country. So it doesn't matter which church is in which locality, they raise their funds, they collect 3 offerings. I think the only other place I saw that I came away amazed was Nigeria. I went to Nigeria, I came back challenged. A church where 7 offerings were taken with much joy. 7. People dancing and feeling happy. I came and said, Lord, I thought Kenyans give, but they are nowhere near Nigeria. So this church, 3 offerings. The first offering is the normal offering to the church. The second offering is a missionary offering. The third offering is an administration offering. Now, the local church, matters of electricity, local worker, that one is a 4th offering. You contribute, bring this. We are looking for 70,000 shillings. You bring 10, they pay the worker, they do what? That's a local thing. But that offering is counted immediately, and then the people who count, the members count, they sign against, they give it to the pastor or the treasurer, they go to the bank on the church account. In one of the years, the Easter offering was 17 million shillings. They only needed another 20 million from the bank to put up the best building in Machakos town. Storied building, 6 or so floors. Safaricom came to the best building. They took like 4 floors. And then our college took another 2 floors. So they were immediately in returns. I'm just saying, if your members can trust you, they will give you resources. Yes. Please, trust. Tell the accountants, don't joke with resources. This is God's money. The sons of Eli joked with God's offerings. You know what happened to them. Yeah? This is God's money. Lend trust. Let the people know that we have given resource and those resources have done the right thing. Once that is the case, people will release resources, you'll be surprised. But if they begin to doubt, you'll just see dry. And so, good corporate governance has been attributed to the great success of many organizations. And lastly, embracing of corporate governance principles is a sure way of enhancing the performance of churches and other related organizations. So with those remarks, thank you for listening to me. God bless you, and thank you for the privilege of speaking to this great conference. Okay.
Dr. Kisaka, thank you very much. Someone who give the words of appreciation to you, but maybe at this point in time we want to hear whether there are comments, questions, compliments, clarifications from the presentation. Anyone to say anything? Was it too difficult or too tough for us? Where I have heard is where you said, President, he said the board makes a strategic plan and give the management to run with it. So I have an answer already. That the strategic plan will come, give me and tell me what to do, then observe the results. Yes, Reverend Ted.
Thank you very much. I want to first thank our presenter today, because you have spoken a very sensitive and very crucial, very critical subject, because this is where we fear going into. One of the challenges we have is the question of the vision bearer, because many of the programs or activities in the church, you will find that sometimes it is the pastor or the bishop or a senior person in the church who is the vision bearer. And now, when you are presenting, actually I saw it in black and white, the divisions. But most of the times, those divisions just come in our eyes as just one. The governor, I'm the governor, I'm the manager, and of course I'm the board. And I think that is one of the issues we struggle with. How best can we be able to address those separations and also take care of the vision? I mean, be able to safeguard the vision. Because that's why most of the times we don't want to move. We don't want to leave because we fear the vision is going to die. I think I have learned a lot, and I've copied a lot, because I have many programs. For instance, in my just local church, I have a school which I started like in the year 2000. I have water processing machines. I have a program for socio-economic empowerment. And now we are starting an agroponic farming. I mean, all this coming together. I feel I need to be in all of them. At least I have left, like the school I'm no longer in the water management. But the other two, I still feel I need to clean. How safe am I by just letting go? I have that problem of always waking up, starting talking without saying who I am. Sorry for that. I'm Reverend Paul Maderi, the Dean of Superintendents, United Methodist Church, and the General Secretary for East Africa Central Conference.
So can I respond to that? Was there another? Maybe we'll take a few.
Do we have any? Okay, it seems that's the only one. Okay.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank you for your transparency and honesty. Let me say this. Jesus had only one known officer. He was of questionable character, and Jesus made him the treasurer. I don't know how to put that so that it comes across the right way. I'm just saying, can you imagine? We are ministers of the gospel. We are ministering in a church. We have been with people for 5 years, 10 years. We can trust none of them to take care of our facilities. Jesus was here for only 3 years. He had 12. One of them was a very radical fellow, and he could trust him with the treasury. I mean, can you I don't know. I hope you get what I am trying to say. So what's the difference between the approach of Jesus and ours? The approach of Jesus is to trust people and trust them responsibility. Our approach is to distrust them and make ourselves the only one who can do it. So yes, I think what we should do, number one, is to immediately get into the habit of developing leaders. Develop leaders. Because each one of these is competent if you give them a chance. Each one of them. And in his ministry, Paul talks about Epaphroditus, Epaphras, Titus, Timothy, Priscilla, Aquila. The list is endless. He's naming his partners. Timothy I have left there, Titus I have sent, Epaphras came to me. That's the language. So I want to encourage you. It's the calling of the Lord on your life. It's the vision he has given you. All that are wonderful. Now, you ought to, like the disciples, to say, if I continue to remain in this school, what will happen to the preaching of the gospel? It will suffer. So what should I do? I should withdraw to governance and choose highly skilled individuals. And they are there. There are people who can run that school until you are amazed. There are people who can run the agro-business until you are amazed. They are there. Ask God for them. Give them the chance. Stand back. Will there be mishaps sometimes? Will there be misuse of funds sometimes? Definitely. These are ordinary human beings. That's why board meetings meet every quarter. That's why their subcommittees meet more frequently to evaluate, to test, to take risks. And when you see that trend, you bring it to book, you change the worker, and you move on. And God will bless your work. So I can only say the key word there is trust. And I am emphasizing trust your own ministry. In other words, God has sent me to preach. All these years I have preached. I don't believe I can raise 10 people who can replace me. You must trust your ministry. Yeah. Please trust your ministry. It is God's ministry, it is God's people, and people learn when they are entrusted. So I hope I have answered the question. God bless you, and thank you again for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kisaka. May I kindly ask my sister and my presiding bishop just to give the words of appreciation on behalf of the heads of Conference Summit.
I take this opportunity during this graveyard shift where everyone is half asleep to say well done to you, Doc, because you brought to us a presentation that not only engaged us intellectually, but it made us think, it made us reflect upon our own leadership role as leaders and even as general secretaries or secretaries of conference, etc., etc. That is our conversation here. So on behalf of this summit, thank you. And may God bless the work that you do, your ability to connect your knowledge from the corporate to scripture and speak in a compelling way whilst grounding everything on the gospel is certainly commendable. And we will certainly use the principles that you have taught us, that even as we learn about governance in this place, if we do not teach our people on governance, then we would always be those who never take leave, who never take furlough, who never spend time balancing work, family life, and spirituality. And so this is critical work that you have called us to, that would ensure a holistic well-being as leaders, because when governance is proper, when there is monitoring and evaluation, when there is accountability, it sets us free to exercise our first calling, which is preaching the gospel and which is a ministry of oversight. And of course, being pastors to ourselves and to our families. May God bless you for the work that you do. It is quite interesting what you do in, is it called CORET? It is exciting, and I have looked it up, and I certainly will see if there's ways in which we can contact one another and follow up on the opportunities that are presented. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Maybe just to say, Corat Africa, apart from the programs that they have where people can come to Kenya, conferences can organize for them to train their people in their conference. Methodist Church in Zimbabwe had that opportunity where all their leaders were trained, over 30 of them in country, so they came to Zimbabwe. So it's also an opportunity for them. They can come. They do work very well. Thank you very much. You said it's half gravy. Oh, we learn every day. So we just stretch up again so that we come and discuss this critical issue before supper. You know, what we've been discussing, it's been very critical. The president thinks that we must put this report to finality, then we go for supper. Dr. Gisaka, may God bless you and continue to bless you. So if you've got your business cards, you can leave them. They will be happy to invite you to their different countries for different programs. Thank you very much. Okay. I'm afraid to say let's go out, but people will not come back. Can we just stand up and stretch? I'm afraid to say let's do head and shoulders, knees and toes, because my brother, hello? Can you bring the chairs now? I've got very few business cards. So for those who would want them, please come and get, so that you get Corat Africa coming to your country. Those who want to invite them, I don't want to give anyone, but I want to give those who want to be given, those who are prepared to, in September, every September, they will do a senior managers training for 6 weeks, where they do intensive course. The reason why I'm doing so well is because I was at Corat president. I'm an alumni of Corat. Anyone else? I still have one more. Thank you very much. Thank you. God bless you. Thank you. Oh, Dr. Kisaka, they are saying just a minute. Continue from where we left. Thank you.
All right. Page 32.